All right, so first of all, the first thing we want to do is welcome you guys all on the call. This is a Unleashed International training call, so or I guess webinar. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be really drilling down into following up and closing. William and I are going to go through basically the process of following up and closing, what to do, what to say, where to stand, what some of the pitfalls are that people run into during the closing process. And this webinar is basically one in a series of webinars that we're doing for the Unleashed International community, our team, in the last couple of weeks. And then moving forward, what we really want to do is we want to take the main distinctions of what it takes to be successful in the business and really separate them out, so make and actually distinguish between what they are, and then drill down as deep as we can. Because as William and I were talking about earlier when we're creating this, confused people do nothing, and they don't know what they don't know, literally. And so a lot of times when people first start this business, they don't know what questions to ask, and they don't know where to ask for help because they've never done it before. So it's literally in their blind spot, and they can't see what it is that they need. So what we want to do is really make a series of training and development videos where we take the main distinctions about what it takes to be successful: inviting, prospecting, following up and closing, presenting. Those are like the main four. We want to separate them and really drill down and get in depth. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Fine.
Okay. Wendy just said she was having trouble hearing. All right, so let's get into it. I'll slow down a little bit so that if I don't break up as much. All right, so many of you have probably heard the saying that the fortune is in the follow-up, and that is very, very, very true in a lot of ways. There's only a few skills that you really, really need in order to become a real pro in network marketing, and prospecting, contacting, inviting, and then follow-up and closing are two really, really main aspects of that. So there's sort of two sides of one coin. But the fortune and the follow-up means that it's a process. It takes about 5 to 10 exposures or appointments for a prospect to join the business on average, right? So you're always going to have your really excited people that are enrolled in the idea of the business. They see possibility right away. They were really already looking for something just like this, and when they were presented to it, they really took it, and they saw the opportunity for themselves. Most people that you interact with are already involved in stuff. They're busy. They have jobs. They have families. They have stuff going on in their life. And so they really need to take the time and figure out, what is USANA? What's the opportunity for them? Why are the products different? They really have to get clear for themselves, not only what the company is and why the products are important, but why the business is something that now is the right time for them, right? So the good news is that amount of exposures is a really good thing. And the reason for that is you build rapport. You build relationships, and when you get to the end of that process, you really have people that are not out to get rich quick, or they're not out for some magic pill type of thing. They're people who have done due diligence. They're genuinely interested. They've gone through the process, so you've already talked to them about what it takes to be involved, and they're qualified. So they're people who have made an informed decision, and they're
Muted. Unmuted.
Do you guys hear that?
Somebody jumped on and started talking, so I muted everybody, so you're back on again, everybody else is muted.
Okay, I just got muted for a second, so I unmuted myself.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Okay, so one of the realities is that, the follow-up is really a process, and we want to embrace the process. So the key is, and this is William's expertise, that we really want to slow people down, right? So, if people are really super enthusiastic, yes, we want them to join the business, right away if that's what they want to do. But our job is to really make sure that they're present to what the whole thing is, not to convince them to sign up. Because the thing is, if you convince someone to sign up when they're not fully prepared, then you've actually just created a headache for yourself, right? Because the person hasn't done the due diligence. They're not sure where they are. They come in confused, and you got to unconfuse them. And that can be, it can take much longer to deal with that than if you had actually followed the process from the very beginning, right? And had all of that stuff managed so that by the time they said yes to the business, they were fully present to what they were doing. So in GoPro, Eric Worre says that what you want to do is you want to get 5 to 7 exposures in like the first week and a half, first 7 to 10 days. And the way that you do that is and you want to minimize the time between the appointments, right? Because the reality is you can do a presentation with someone and they are lit up. They are lit up by possibility. They see what this can do for their lives. They're like really present to how amazing the products are, like the people that are in their life that could really benefit from this. And maybe they have a couple of things that they need to work out, right? If you let a week go by, time is amazing at killing possibility. And, people's their concerns come back in and life happens, right? So you really, 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 really want to keep people in the conversation as much as possible by making sure that you get that 5 to 7 exposures within that 7 to 10 day process. And we're going to go over more as the presentation continues, how it is that you're going to be able to minimize that time by basically moving from appointment to appointment to appointment. And the reality is that if you walk people through this process and you show them the business and you show them the products and you get their concerns, you get their questions, you handle those questions, you handle those concerns, and you really get into their world and walk them through a step-by-step process where you show them the compensation plan, you show them how to get paid, you show them how to work the business, and they're fully prepared, then it's actually a logical process. Like once you've worked through that process with someone, it's very natural that they join the business, right? So when you follow the system, it may take a little bit longer than what your brain wants, right? Because a lot of us are very immediately oriented, but it's actually much shorter, when it comes to the amount of time that it takes. As William always says, slow is fast and fast is slow. So William, you want to say something about the process?
And one of the things is, remember, what we are is we're farmers. You're planting seeds, and sometimes there's a gestation period, so you just keep planting seeds. But you can be more intentional with the way you plant the seeds, as in getting them to one appointment to the next appointment. And we're going to go through the processes and how you can get people there quicker. So we're going to cover that in the next slide, but really just get into the world of, if you were to plant a seed in the ground, would you dig it back up again to see if it's growing, or would you just trust the process that you're actually making a difference? But even if you can't see the immediate tree pop up, right? Because you plant in and then you dig it up, it's not growing, and then you put it back in and then you dig it up, it's not growing, and then you end up, this doesn't work. It takes, like a bamboo plant, right? It takes 7 years for bamboo to grow. But the last part of the growth of that bamboo is actually in the last couple of months, out of that 7 years. And our business is the same. We're growing moment by moment. Because we're impatient, we don't see it happening fast enough. We start beating ourselves up, making ourselves wrong, or these people are not moving fast enough. So we're constantly impatient and making things wrong. So it's about slowing down and getting that there's actually force. We have to go through the seasons. We have to plant seeds and nurture and cultivate. And if we get into the world of setting the context that we're farmers and the harvest is coming and it is guaranteed, as long as we stick to the seasons and stick to the process, then it's just a matter of time. There's a time gap between that, and as you know, most people are impatient. But then think about it, you can work 40, 50 years in your job, and how long do you think it's going to take to get financially free? And these skills that you're learning here are the highest paid skills in the world. So if you treat them with the respect, slow down and actually start mastering these processes, you'll never need to work again in your life, and you'll touch so many people's lives. So it really is, when we put a call on like this, but who turned up is perfect. Some people didn't turn up, and that's fine. But just remember, the people who pull this towards them are the one it's going to reveal itself to a higher level. So I congratulate you for being on this call, because the people who are on this call is the people who are moving. And so other people have got other things on. It's no wrong that anybody's on it or not. They'll get another chance because we'll do it again. But the point is, you're here, and soak this up, and let's just enjoy the process. So I'll hand you back to Nathan.
Enjoy the process. No, it's perfect, right? So it's a logical process with an emotional pull. And the idea really is that you work them through at whatever pace works for them. You got to meet people where they're at. And at some point in time, they're going to get touched, moved, and inspired. And that's the emotional pull, is that moment when you're walking them through the process, you're walking them through the process, you're walking them through the process, and then all of a sudden, boom, it hits them. Wow, okay. Then a whole new future opens up for them. And they literally get present to something that's now possible for them that wasn't possible before. And you have no idea when that's going to happen during the process, right? A lot of times we go back to our own process and we try to figure out when it happened for us. And then we use our agenda to figure out how to talk to people, right? So anytime you feel yourself getting impatient, wishing it was going faster, just get that that's you. You're driving the process with your ego instead of paying attention to where they're at and having a conversation with them based on their needs. Because at some point in time during that logical process, they will become emotionally pulled, and that's when they'll join the business. You don't want them joining the business before they get emotionally moved by what's possible for them. Three aspects of an effective follow-up. So as we go on, what we're going to be highlighting is that all follow-ups contain three different parts, right? They're organized, which means you have structures in place. You have a contact system, right? You have an Excel file or whatever it is that you use for your contact management system. You're prepared. You know who the person is. You know what their contact information is, their emails, their Facebook page, their phone numbers, whatever information you have for them. You take notes about the person. Who are they for you? What habits do they have? How many kids do they have? Do they have dogs? You know what I mean? You want to keep notes on the people as you go through the process as well, so that there's a flow. There's a natural flow between the appointments. And if you're on your fourth appointment and you reference something that they mentioned back in the first appointment that was important to them, then that's how you build rapport, by actually listening to what's important to people. And they get that you care about them if you're listening, to what's going on in the multiple interactions, especially if you're a busy person with a busy life and you remember like what their hobbies are. It's a big deal. And the best way to do that is make sure that you have notes that you can refer to, so that before you go into a follow-up session, you can actually just glance at it and just get who that person is, so that that's the context that you have going into the next important. It's it's huge. And then consistency. Consistency means telling people what they can count on you for, like saying what you're going to do. You're going to follow up with them at a particular time. If you tell someone that you're going to follow up with them at a particular time on a particular day, make sure that you do that, right? That's what professionals do. And so you want to make sure that you're saying what you're gonna do, and then you do what you're do what and then you do what you said you would do. And then the third element is be persistent. And what that means is that you have to have stick-with-itness, right? During this process, things are going to happen in people's lives. They're going to get sick. They're going to move. They're going to have job issues. They're going to have relationship issues. Things are going to come up and get in the way of the plan that you had in your mind for how it was going to go, right? And persistence is just dealing with what happens as it comes up and remaining to the system, like sticking with the system in the process, but also being flexible to deal with whatever comes up in the interactions or in between the interactions and all that. So we'll sort of flesh that out as we go. So this is one of the probably the most important topic, and one of the ones that in my opinion is not talked about enough in our industry, and that is that following up is really a team sport, right? It's about using the people, your upline, using your cross line, using the experts that are in your business, making sure that you're working closely with the people that are on your team, and so that the people that you're working with, when you're following up with them, they're present to the fact that there is like a whole company, right? And they're not just working with one person who's out there trying to drive their business, but if they come to work with you, they actually get that there's a huge team that they're working with. And also, you have a limited perspective, right? So you're the ceiling, you're the ceiling to your own business, right? The box that you're in is the limit to your own business. And the more people that you get contributing during the follow-up process, the more perspectives there are, and the more unlimited you are in your ability to follow up with people and be flexible in that follow-up process because you got more eyes on it. So what we have here is, you use your upline. So the people who work up closely, and by closely, let me be more specific. I mean, in the beginning, when you first start this business, I mean that when you're during the follow-up process, you're talking to your upline every day. So you contact and invite someone. They respond to you. You immediately go right back to your upline and say, hey, Nathan, this is, I said this to Joe, and this is what he said back. What should I say? So that you're literally, it's like, he said this, I said this, he said this, I said this, and you're literally being guided, or you're doing the guiding through the entire follow-up process, right? Until it's your turn to do the same thing with the people that come into your business. So lone wolves, this is something that I had to learn the hard way. Sort of William has been my mentor through this process, and I know that he's been frustrated with me on a number of occasions throughout this process, because part of my default mechanism is to try to do things on my own, right? And I had to learn the lesson, and the lesson that I learned was my business grew very slowly for like 2 years because I was trying to do stuff on my own. So lone wolves don't make it in this business. You can either die alone, or you can learn the hard way and get enough pain that will bring you back to the pack, and you can join into a team effort. So William, do you want to say something about edification? Because I know that's something that's very passionate, that you're very passionate about.
Well, when I first joined the business, right, the number one incomer in the whole world took me into his office and had a conversation with me. So I'm talking to Bill and Jenny Huang, right? So I get to spend a lot of time with the number one incomer in the world. So when he says ABC, I do ABC. So he says A, right, is you. In fact, so A is the prospect. B, in fact, so A is say me, right, and B, you're the bridge, and then C is the customer. So then what happens is, as we're talking, you edify me to the customer then trusts me, and it's because I don't have a relationship with that person. So that's why we've got some scripts when it comes to it. So you have a script about Nathan and a script about me. The key is to write these down, get these nailed down, because it creates massive posture when you're getting onto one of the webinars that we're doing, or if you're getting somebody to do a follow-up call with us. It means they look at us as an opportunity, because we can't edify ourselves. Now, look, me and Oko have done a lot of work with this, and we created the script. And what I found when we done this is, when people were coming on from the Netherlands and different parts of the world where Oko was edifying me, they were thanking me. We had that much posture that they were thanking me for the opportunity that they were just about to see. And then when we'd finished the presentation, they were thanking me for the opportunity that they might be able to get involved with us. So the posture was absolutely huge. And it's because we take the time to set up these scripts. So ABC doesn't just mean us, it also means the company, right? So like say you edify a product, it's an ABC. You edify Dr. Oz, ABC. So it's anything but edifying ourselves. It's a third party edification. And that is so powerful, because then the pressure is not on you as you build your business, because if you make yourself the issue, you don't have any credibility. But Dr. Oz has credibility. Myron Wentz, get the Albert Einstein Award, he has credibility. So your uplines get credibility in that person's eyes because you put them up there as a professional, and you just sit back and then you learn how the follow-up process is by working closely with your upline. This is why it's about using your upline, because when your upline's answering the question, right, then you get to see how the question's answered, but you're not under any pressure. So you learn really quick and you get results because your upline's tag teaming with you. But most people are independent, and a lot of people don't like to impose on others. So if you're the type of person who doesn't want to impose or phone and ask for help, you're actually, it's detrimental to your business, it's detrimental to your growth, and it's also not helping your upline help you. And because remember, that's his business, he wants to help you. Obviously, you just have to arrange timing, but the key is follow up with your upline is the fastest way to grow. It's the fastest way for you to learn how to answer the questions, and people will join your business if you do tag teaming. So back to Nathan.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's sort of back to the slow, so the slow is fast and the fast is slow as well. I know that just recently I've been working with a number of the people that are new into my business, and it really took them making the mistake a couple of times of because they wanted quick results, they followed up with their own people. But what they ended up doing was pushing people and saying things that it was not the right thing to say at the right time. And what they did was they ended up losing really good prospects by following up the wrong way, right? And we didn't know, or at least I didn't know that they were saying what they were saying until they like took a picture of the message that they were sending to their prospects, and then they send it to me, right? So what happens is then you now have to go out and find new prospects. If you just do it the way that it's designed, you actually end up saving yourself a lot of time and energy because it's a very efficient process.
And let me add something a second. The difference between what we were doing the last 2 years to what we're doing now is different, right? So when we're talking about follow-up, we've been following up on the phone with conversations. Now, that still happens today, but what we're really doing now is we're doing the blitz. So it's texting. So it's easy to flick your upline the text and then get a reply, or phone them up, say this is what they say, is what should I text back? Because you've got time to reply to a text. It's not instant, so you're not under pressure on the phone. You're actually still got time because it's a texting thing.
Yeah.
So texting is changing and making this business so easy for the average person, because most people can't really when they come in, they're not maybe as fluent in conversation because they don't know the subject, so it's hard to speak. As you grow your business, you will get fluent in it, but the Texans just it's just absolutely taking over this business. It's making it so easy for the average person coming in to get a great result quick.
Yeah.
So the follow-up process is a little bit different because it's Texan, but it's still, you don't want to be Texan answers. You want to be communicating your upline because there is only so many answers there is, and once you've got them down pat, you'll then know, and then you can duplicate that.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because and the last point I think is even more important, is that there really is only there's a very small variety of answers that you will be giving to people anyway, and once you learn what they are, then you can go do it on your own, right? But until you have a grasp of that, you don't want to be out there just winging it, because you will make mistakes and you will turn people off, and all of that. So we are actually in a great position at the moment for the exact reason that William said, and that is, you get time. Someone sends you a message, you get to digest it, you get to really spend some time, go back to your upline, have a conversation about why they say you should say what they say you should say, and you can get like the whole world of it. It's just a really, really powerful process. So the number one rule of follow-up, and this is the one that really gets people stopped, and they get derailed by this, and that is that the intention of every appointment is only to book the next appointment. So where you want to stand is that if you screw up every part of the follow-up except for one, which is book the next appointment, you got a victory, because that is really the key. So you want to be moving from appointment to appointment. One part of the reason that network marketing has gotten a bad rap in the past is the improper procedure of certain distributors. When they first come in, they don't know the process, and they go out there and they operate in a way that's not professional. If you go to a doctor, or you go to a physical therapist, or you go to an acupuncturist, whatever the case may be, you never leave that office without your next date set up. If you go to a doctor, they say, great, I want to see you in 3 months' time. Go out to the receptionist and book in your next appointment right now. It's the same thing in our business. You will never find yourself chasing a prospect ever again if you set the date that you're going to call and what time you're going to call, because they are expecting your call, right? So it never seems like, why is he calling me, right? Because it's an appointment that you set and they've agreed to that. What doesn't work is if they just say, well, I'm really interested, but I need some time, and you say, oh, great, I'll give you a call in a couple of weeks and we can follow up, right? That begins the process of weirdness, because you haven't actually gotten the invitation to call back at a particular time. So it's predictable that if they're not expecting your call, you call and they don't pick up, or you text, and they're not prepared for that. And if you have to keep doing that, then that's where the chasing comes from. And once you do that a couple of times, you lose your posture completely. So you lose that posture of professionalism that you had, because the person literally feels like you're trying to get them somewhere. You're trying to sell them something. You're trying to move them in a particular direction, instead of the natural cadence of what happens in a dialogue when the expectations are there and they're fulfilled. So what does that look like? You never leave the scene of an appointment without setting up the next appointment. And by setting up the appointment, we mean set it in stone. So exact dates and exact times. So I'm going to call you next Wednesday, July, whatever that is, 22nd at 12 o'clock. Does that work for you? Yes, great. And then next step, it goes in both of your diaries, right? So it goes in my schedule and it goes in their schedule. And I'll actually say to them, great, I'm putting it into my diary right now. Can you do the same thing? Because the reality is, if it's not in your diary and it's not in their diary at the exact same time, it doesn't exist in reality. It's not actually an appointment. And people really will take you, like if when you operate this way and you go from appointment to appointment to appointment to appointment, especially if you go over like 5 or 7 appointments and you're on time and you call when you say you're going to call 4 or 5 times, they will relate to you differently. They will relate to you as a professional that knows what they're doing, and they want to be a part of a team that operates in that type of way. So how do you set up an appointment, right? So what does it look like to actually set up an appointment? So what that looks like is, first of all, you're working, hopefully you're working with an upline, right? So you've done a presentation, and the person that you're working with has found out whatever there is to find out. Like the person is really interested, but they want some more information. So say they love the sound of the products, but they're a little bit like they're not quite sure about network marketing in particular, right? So you find out what, if any, information they need, and then you want to always give them something to take home with them in between the next appointment. So literally the next appointment, the only intention behind the next appointment is to review whatever material that you gave them at the last appointment. Right? So you can actually, so if they're a little bit, they're not quite sure about network marketing, you give them The Rise of the Entrepreneur, right? Which is a documentary about why network marketing is amazing, right? And so what you want to say is, okay, great. So you get that they're a little bit confused about network marketing. You get what information they need, and you say, great. If I send you Rise of the Entrepreneur right now, it's about 45 minutes. It's a documentary. It's like going to blow your mind. When do you think you can realistically review it by? And they'll have you can actually say, why don't you have a look at your diary and let me know when does it work for you to have that reviewed by? And they give you an exact time, right? So you set the next appointment by saying, great. So you said you could have it watched by next Wednesday. Do you prefer mornings, afternoons, or evenings? And they say, well, I work full time, so evenings work best for me. So you say, great. So you'll have a chance to review it by, if I call you next Wednesday at like 6 o'clock, you'll have a chance to review it by then for sure, right? And if they say yes, say, great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to you right now, and we'll go over any questions or concerns that you have next Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
So Nathan, one of the things I don't give people the time. I just say, so if I called you next Wednesday, what would be the best time and number to get you on? Because then they're booking the appointment. Because if we give them the time and they say no, then it gets weird. So you want them to be fully in control of the appointment, because then they're the one booking the appointments, their integrity on the line, and they're the one that's fitted into their schedule. They told you when they're going to be free. Mm-hmm. It gives them full control, which means you've just increased your odds of that happening quite considerably, because it's their idea and it's their time.
Okay, you mean so have them, so once you identify the day that works for them, then take it the next step and actually have them create what time works best for them as well.
So that's what I say that all the time. I says, look, so if I give you this video, when could you watch it for sure? And they go, Thursday. I says, excellent. So if I gave you a call, so that I'm slowing the process down. So if I gave you a call on Thursday, you'd have watched it for sure. Right? And they go, yeah, excellent. So what? And then I say to them, so what's the best time and number to get you on? And then they go, maybe 7 o'clock. I says, excellent. So if I called you at 7, you'll be free to talk, and we can take it from there. Excellent. So then it's slower. It's a little bit slower, but it's accurate, and they're the ones fully in control. Mm. And that's on that GoPro. So if everybody's got GoPro, it's got a step-by-step, bang, bang, bang. Yeah. And then that's easy just to follow, and don't change it, man. Just stick. And now all I done was, when I started learning GoPro, and I just followed that just keeps you safe. It doesn't get weird. They're in control, and it's just a normal dialogue. So there's nothing weird or convincing about it. It's actually them setting the appointment. Yep. And all we are is facilitating a conversation, and they're booking an appointment with us. The psychology of this is amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, so you can actually go back. I think it's in the contacting and inviting section of GoPro, but the same thing applies to the follow-up as well.
Yeah, because it's all the same thing. Because even when every time you follow somebody up, right, and you're going to, if I got you an appointment with Nathan, who's a very successful guy, and you create the script and you put you put Nathan's script in there. If I got your appointment with blah blah blah, and then tell him a little bit of background on Nathan, would you be able to attend? He's very busy, but I could get you an appointment. And then they say yes, excellent. Just say so. Give me 3 times, and I'll see if I can get one of them to work. Because that's all still part of the follow-up.
Yeah.
And then you just use that same conversation on booking meetings as well as the follow-up. And then you use it with your children. If you tidy your room, when would you have that done by?
Yeah.
And then you don't need to argue with your kids.
Yeah, it's so
you can
true.
use this thing for everything. It's perfect.
It's so true. Yeah, it's really is universal. I mean, it's not just this business. It's like every area of your life. That's so true. All right. So the next step is very simple, right? Do what you said you would do. If you say you're going to call them or meet them at a particular time, call them and meet them when you said you would. You know, if you said you're going to call at 7 o'clock, don't call at 6:50, right? Because they're probably, you know, you want to relate to them as a big person with a big life with a lot going on. And if you call them at 6:50 when you booked an appointment at 7 o'clock and they're still in an appointment with someone else, that's not a good look, right? So you want to call them or meet them, you know, when you said you would. And if for some reason something, you know, things come up, right? Life gets in the way, you know, things come up. So if you do need to reschedule, make sure that you're scheduling 24 hours in advance notice is professional courtesy, right? The reality is you want to reschedule with them as soon as you know that you can't keep your commitment, right? So if it's 3 days ahead and you know something comes up and you want to immediately get in contact with that person and say, hey, look, you know, something's just come up. I realize that I can't be there. Right, so you want to let them know as soon as you know that the appointment's not going to work for you, that it's not going to work for you. And you want to rebook right there. So if they need to cancel or they need to reschedule or whatever the case may be, you know, it happens on their end. Just love them where they're at, get their communication, and just make sure you rebook for another appointment. Right then and there. So you get a date and you get a time immediately. That way you're still moving from appointment to appointment. And the most important part, because this is going to happen a lot, right? It just happens in life, is not taking any sort of missed appointment personally or anything along those lines. Even if the person misses a couple of appointments, you never know what people are dealing with. So you want to be able to maintain your posture. And one of the best ways that I know that William does and I do is you want to constantly use a positive reframe. So if your brain starts going in a direction, you know, where you're like, oh, here, you know, here's this person, they're doing it again, they're probably just at home sitting on the couch or whatever. You know, you don't want to go down that route because it's never good. So you always want to assume the best, you know. And so that way, when you're having interactions with people, you always have a positive frame that you're coming from, and there's never anything going on behind your eyeballs about that person. Is there anything you want to say about that, Willie?
Yeah, it's just as you say, you don't know what they're dealing with, and if you always expect the best and just trust that there's something going on with them that they couldn't make it. Now, obviously, you give people the benefit of the doubt, because if you don't, you end up getting all weird and then paranoid, and then you go, and then your ego kicks in, and then before you know it, you got to stuff them. But really, you don't know that when you bring that ego to your business, it will cost you a fortune.
Yeah.
And everybody's got a judgmental mindset, and it doesn't matter who it is. We're all getting better at doing less and less and less of that. But the ego will cost you a fortune. Ego's always making something wrong, comparing, you've got high ideals and integrity is high to you, and it might not be as high for somebody else. And obviously, once they get into this business, integrity becomes a higher value because we teach people how amazing your life becomes when you have a high integrity. But remember, as you're bringing people into this environment, integrity is not really high in the world. So the key is don't make it wrong. I even tell, like, I've told people in the past when they've let me down a few times. I've actually said to them, I says, look, one of the things we teach you when you come in here is to have a life that really works at a high level. Is integrity is important. And I know when I first started, my integrity was crap. But what I learned in USANA is to have an amazing integrity in my finances, my marriage, my relationships with people. People can trust me because I honoured my word. But before, I wasn't very trustworthy because I kept breaking my word. And it's not because I meant to break my word. I just wasn't really present to that. And I've actually told people, because if they've cancelled with me 2 or 3 times, I actually have this conversation with them, because either they're going to grow and follow me, and I let them save face and then show them that I was doing that as well. That I've had people join my business because I had that kind of straight conversation with them, because they're coming into an environment where I'm not going to make them wrong, and I'm going to show them how they can actually get that together. So sometimes just being authentic with people, but not coming from a judgmental, you done anything wrong. And a lot of the cases, you don't even need to highlight it with them. You can just let it go. But if they continue to do it, what have you got to lose? You can be straight with them and they'll have a breakthrough. And if you don't, you're not going to go into your business anyway. Mm. So either way, you're either going to make a difference by being straight with them, and they'll either get that and move on in their journey and maybe get that lesson, and they'll start seeing it in other places of life because you had the, suppose, the authenticity to say that. Because if you say nothing, nothing's going to change. You walk away thinking, oh, these people are rude, they didn't honour a word, and they don't need to give them feedback.
Yeah.
So feedback's a big thing, and sometimes being that authentic, your business will grow faster if you're straight with people. I think that's why I'm quite effective with people in a lot of ways, because I will go into that conversation that most people won't go near, and it does make a difference, because then people go, wow, that person, that was a little bit uncomfortable, but I really liked it. And I reckon authenticity is a big thing. But the key, what we're trying to show you here, is always come from a loving context, and people don't know that they're doing the impact on other people. So the key is to always come from a good context, and then you always treat them with love and respect, even if they did stand you up. So back to you, Nathan.
All right. Yeah, just be great with people, man. It makes a huge difference. All right, so ask questions. And so the 80-20 rule is beautiful, right? Because this is something that you can just really have a look at for yourself, and this is for every area of your life. But it's specific, especially germane to business and your personal relationships, because you really want to look at in your life, where are you dominating conversations and not letting other people really say what's there for them. And in this business, if that's the way that you operate, you're not going to be very effective, right? So the 80-20 rule is you want to be talking no more than 20% of the time, and allowing the other person to really share where they're coming from and what they care about and what they're up to for the rest of the time. So the real key is to be like a kid. Is to be curiously engaged in what the other person is up to. That's what people love to be around kids most of the time, because they have that kind of wonder and they have that childlike curiosity, and people feel really connected to people when they feel like the person is really interested in them. So you want to be like super interested in who the other person is, what they're dealing with, what they're up to. That way you can actually say to them, at the end of the conversation, wow, I really get that you're up to big stuff and you got some big goals, and after they see the presentation, you can actually say to them, given that whole world that you created with me, when we were having coffee the other day, can you see how what you just saw in that presentation for USANA could actually be a vehicle to help you get from where you are now to all that amazing stuff that you created with me? But you can only have those types of conversations with people when you get out of your own head and you put your agenda aside and you put all of your strategy to the side and you get 100% over there with them. You literally get in their world where you're experiencing, their life inside of, what they're creating with you. And when you're listening for what matters to other people and they get that you care about them and you're genuinely interested in them, they will open up to you and they will share everything that you need to know in order to tailor the conversation or the presentation in a way that really works the best for them. Right? So what you want to listen for is what matters to them, what's important to them, what they're committed to, what their values are. Very, very quickly, people will wear their values in their conversation. You will be able to tell what people's values are very, very quickly if you're listening for that. And that will determine the types of questions that you're going to ask in the conversation that you're having now, in the one that you'll have in the future, and on and on and on. Right? So you want to be navigating the conversation with questions, right? You want to be pointing it in particular directions, but you want them to be driving the conversation. And by that, I mean you want them to be talking the majority of the time, and you want them to be answering specific questions that you're asking to guide them in a particular direction, but you want their answers to drive the conversation.
So one other thing I'd like to add is when you're, if you want somebody to be authentic with you and kind of vulnerable, because that's the only thing that really gets you to the next place to move somebody along. To do that, you must be vulnerable. Because if we act as if we've got it all together and we're perfect and polished, people, that's not really relatable to people. The key is what I just said to you a minute ago when I told you about that person about, say, no having integrity, and I actually says, look, I had no integrity. I actually bared myself and talked about me, so that person doesn't feel as if, oh, I'm perfect. I tell people my past. I tell them the way I was before, because then they can relate to that, because that's real. We might polish ourselves up now, and our lifestyle's changing because of integrity, but none of us were like that at the beginning. So telling people about your past and where I've been, you're actually being vulnerable with that person and authentic, and then they start being vulnerable and authentic back. Because most people have got this facade of, I need to have it all locked together and worrying what people think. Now, what gets rid of that is telling on yourself, being vulnerable. And that's the fastest way to create connection with another human being, that even if you've only met them for a couple of minutes. As soon as you're vulnerable, they're going to let you in, and you're not going to get to talk to the ego or the facade. You're going to get to talk to the real person, and that's what's going to make the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing that's more beautiful, I think, that when you're having an interaction with someone who comes in and they're like clearly a no from the very beginning, and they're kind of skeptical, and they're like, their hands are folded, and they're just, their whole body posture says they don't want to be there or whatever, like that whole type of thing. And then just by being great with them and by being open and by being vulnerable and like just, being over there with them, watching like their whole posture change and watching all that ice melt and having them open up and really engage and really create that rapport and that connection. And that's how you create amazing relationships and that turn into friendships and business partners and all of that. It happens inside of this kind of quality of conversation. So you really want to. So one of the things that I learned when I first read GoPro was actually the first thing that I took away from it when I read it the first time was how often when I did presentations, the first thing that I asked people was, I was all happy with myself because I just done the presentation. I said, "What'd you think?" And I couldn't figure out why nobody was signing up for the business. And after I read GoPro, I really totally got it, that you do not want to ask really general open-ended questions like that. You want to ask very specific questions that guide people in a particular direction, because if you ask someone, "What do you think?" Like that question is so broad that their brain a lot of times will just shut down and they'll go, I don't know, right? And that's why you really want to stay away from non-specific general questions, because it will shut down the interaction very, very quickly. And a lot of times they'll just immediately go to no. So what'd you think? And they're like, a lot of times it'll just immediately go into they're not interested. So you really want to be specific and ask, very general questions. And we'll get in like one more slide. We'll talk about some questions that really, really work when you're going through this process in terms of opening people up and having them have a look for themselves. Because when you ask someone, for example, what was your favorite part, they literally have to go back into their brain and rehearse, what was said on the presentation in order to reflect on, what part really stood out for them. So when you get to the end of a presentation, so hopefully, you're working with an upline, that person has created the presentation, and if they've done their job right, they'll actually ask the people that are on the call. For those of you who are on the call today, people generally find themselves in one or two places. One, they're ready to go, whether it's the products or the business, and two is you're interested, but you have some questions that you want to get answered, and you got some concerns, or there's just something in the way. So please let the person who invited you on the call tonight, let them know whether you're a one or two. And then it makes your job very easy, right? Because all the pressure's off. You can just ask them, so, are you a one or a two? And that's like that's a non-pressure oriented question. And if they say yes, you just say great. And if they're interested in the products, what you want to do is actually right there, do the true health assessment with them. You don't want to send them the true, if you can, right? And they have time. You don't want to just send them the true health assessment and hope they do it, right? Because you got about a 60% chance that's going to happen. If they say they like the products, say great, and then you want to actually walk through the true health assessment with them, and then at the end help them, help guide them in the direction of whatever purchases that they want to make. If they say they're a one and they're interested in the business, great. You want to just fill out an application form and get them started as an associate. If they say they're a two, you want to really recreate what a two is. So if they say they're a two, you say, great, okay, so just let me make sure I got this. So you're interested, but you'd like to hear some more, or you have some questions that you'd like answered before we move forward. Is that right? And then they'll say, some version of yeah. So some of the questions that you can ask are, and the types of questions that you want to ask is leading questions, right? So you want to ask questions that lead in a particular direction. So if you say to someone, if you say, so you're interested, but you have some more questions, they say, yeah. You say, great. Let me ask you a question. What was your favorite part? Or what part did you like best? And they'll come back to you and let you know, well, I thought the products were amazing, great. Were there any products in particular that you liked, and just walk them down that path. And if they say, they're interested in the business, you can actually say, great, what aspect of the business in particular really stood out to you the most, and really drill down from there. And you can literally just keep asking questions until you get more and more into what specifically they liked. Another question you can ask is when you say to them, great, so I get that you're interested, but you've got some questions or concerns that maybe are still lingering for you. Is that right? And if they say yes, say great. Listen, if you had this, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like no interest and 10 being like really interested, what would you say that your level of interest is in either the products or the business like right now? And a lot of people will have a look for themselves, and they'll let you know exactly where they are with either the products and or the business. And then from there, you can really, you can follow whatever their interest is. A lot of people will be super interested in the products but have no interest in the business, and that's great. it's great that they tell you that, because then you know what direction, how to dance in that conversation and where to go with that. Another one is very similar to what we said earlier, which is once you get them to talk about what their goals are and what their dreams are, and what they're up to in life, maybe what some of their health goals are. They've got respiratory issues, or they've got some concerns with their heart, or they want to lose weight, whatever the case may be. You can actually say to them, and this is really powerful, because this is where you really get to bring in. You can actually show them that you've been listening. Right? You can actually say, based on what you said earlier, and in that moment, you want to recreate what they said, based on what you said earlier, and recreate that, what was important to you. Can you see how USANA could help you achieve that goal? And then they'll give you some version of yes, or, maybe they can't really see it at that point in time. And then you just, at that point, you just get whatever's in the way for them. And from there, you want to just say, great, what else do you need to know to be able to help you see that better, or some version of that. And that's the point at which, you set up the next appointment, and then you give them some sort of resource to go home that addresses their specific concern. And then you you have them listen to or read or watch whatever resource it is that you give them, and then you address that on the next follow-up call. Okay, and then Kate Northrup, who is she's a Ruby director in USANA, I think. She's just a beautiful woman who has a lot of success in this business. Her favorite question is very simple. She says, "Is there anything else that you need to know before getting started?" And she says that people will generally tell you whether there's something in the way for them or not. And if they say no, get them started. And if they say yes, you just go right back to it. Okay, great. And you get what their concern is. And then you want to make sure, again, that you're addressing whatever their concern is with a third-party tool in a follow-up session.
Well, Nathan, I'm going to have to go because I need to be somewhere at 2 o'clock, so I have to drive.
Okay.
So, great catching up with you guys. Nathan's going to finish off, and I'll catch up with you all soon.
Very good.
Cheers, Nathan. Great job, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, buddy. So we just got a couple more slides here. Really important. Be prepared. You can't imagine how many presentations that I've done or been on where people were literally ready to sign up or purchase products, and we weren't prepared, or the person who was leading the presentation wasn't prepared, or someone said, "I'm really interested in the Biomega. How much is it?" And they're like, "I don't know." And a lot of times you're going to lose the sale, or you're going to lose the person right there, because you're introducing time into the equation, right? So when you do a presentation, you want to make sure that you have a price list. You want to make sure that you have enrollment forms. So you have PC forms, or you have associate enrollment forms, or whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that you have enrollment pack lists, so that if someone is interested in the business, you can actually pull out a flyer, or you can pull up on the screen what's in the enrollment packs, what products are in there, what additional things that they get are in there, so that there's they get the whole world of that. And if someone's interested in the products, you want to make sure that you have a link to the True Health Assessment ready right there, so you don't have to say, "Great, I'll email it to you," or "Great, I'll send it to you in a text message and follow up with you in a couple of days and see if you're ready to go." No, if you have the link, you just sit down and say, "Great, I'm glad that you're interested in the products. Let's go through the True Health Assessment together right now." And then the other thing is, and I'll have to, people that are interested, send me a message on Facebook when we're finished. And Team Thrive is a group that's here in Maryland, and it's actually one of, or it's not here in Maryland, but it's here in the U.S. And it's led by a gentleman named Brett Etheridge, who's just amazing. He's been around the business for a long time. They created a video that's just amazing in explaining the difference between 1 and 3 business centers, and why it is that people who see this as a real business opportunity, and they see USANA as an asset that they want to build over time 3 business centers is really the only way to go. So you want to really stand for people to make the right decision and get 3 business centers, because it's going to make a difference for them down the road. I've made this mistake a couple of times for myself, so I can speak from experience. If you get someone to sign up with 1 business center and then they have a lot of success, like a year or 2 down the road, and they get for themselves that it would have been way better for them to sign up with a 3 business center, it can create a little bit of bad blood or ill will if they feel like you didn't represent to them the right properly from the very beginning why it would have been more advantageous for them to get the 3 business centers. So be prepared. Third-party tools. This is really important. When you're going through the follow-up process and someone asks you a question, instead of just answering their question, even if you know the answer, go back to a third-party tool. I had a great example. Last week I had one of my new associates named Joe. He had a young woman who was a personal trainer on the call, and she had a shellfish allergy. And she said to me, I'm really looking for a high quality fish oil, because I had just gotten finished sharing why the fish oil was my favorite product. And she said, I am like dying for a really good source of omega-3, but I have this fish allergy. And, I've used flaxseed oil and I've used a lot of these other liquid plant-based omega-3 sources, and it's just not potent enough for me. And instead of just letting her know that, hey, even people that have shellfish allergies can use our Biomega, and it's not a problem, right? Instead of just leaving it at that, I went, you know what? Let's ask the scientists right there on the spot. Jumped on the hub, opened app, asked the scientists, and typed in fish oil allergies, and it came up with an answer from Ask the Scientist about why our fish oil was safe for people that have shellfish allergies. And she was blown away. She was like, wow, this is amazing. And part of the reason for that is you want the USANA tools to create duplication. So if the person is left with during the follow-up process, wow, I can do this. Like, I don't need all of the answers in order to follow people up. That's like a massive belief building process. So if you take their question and you go back and you use a USANA third-party tool to answer their question, it immediately builds belief in the company. It builds belief in the process, so they believe that they can do it. You're not someone special who has all the answers. So it's an amazing way to follow up. And lastly, the real key to following up is making sure that you understand that duplication is always the key. Duplication is the keys to the kingdom. And it's very important to understand that it doesn't matter if you're someone who's like magical with words and you can like persuade people and you have a lot of charisma and a lot of magnetism and you can get people, to do things by putting things in a really well articulated way. If that's not duplicatable, you've just shot yourself right in the head. So you want to make sure that your follow-up process is duplicatable, because the way that you follow people up is the way that your people will follow up their people in the future. And if you want a systematized process that creates results, you want to make sure that you are following a rigorous system so that you can plug them in right away and use that system. And if you wing it, I promise you, again, from lots of example, my first 2.5 years in this business, my business was very slow to be built because I couldn't figure out how to duplicate myself. And it's because I was way overcomplicating things. And so if you wing it, they will wing it, I promise. And you will have duplicated ineffective behavior. Okay, so the best thing is just follow the process so that they follow the process when it's time for them to follow the process. They teach their people to follow the process. That's very, 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 very important. The other thing about that is if the person that you're doing a presentation or a follow-up with is left, if what they're left with is that you're amazing, they love the presentation or they love the follow-up, and they're really bedazzled by what you presented. But if what they're left with is that they can't do that, again, you've just shot yourself in the foot. So you want to make things very simple, very easy, so that they're left with they can do it. Because ultimately, that's what you want them left with, is that they can do what you're doing. So that's it. So the people that are on my team, I have a welcome email that I give to people when they first come into the business. So get with me, and I will provide that for you. If you're in somebody else's team, just email me or contact me on Facebook, whatever the case may be, and I'll make sure that you get the welcome email that we send, and then you can create whatever version of that works for you. But the main thing is that when you have PCs, you want to just acknowledge their decision to choose USANA, right? They could have chosen from lots of other companies out there, but they didn't. And you want to acknowledge them for their choice to use USANA, and then you want to let them know what they can count on you for. You want to let them know, hey, listen, I'm so glad that you're now part of the USANA family. These products are going to be amazing for you. What you can count on me for is letting you know when we have new products out, or to check up with you every 3 months and check back in, see how you're doing, let you know when we're doing reset challenges, things like that. So let them know from the very beginning that you will be in communication with them, so that when you are in communication with them, it's not weird. Very important. When it comes to associates, very simple. Just make sure you welcome them to the team. Again, validate their decision to join your team, and then give them some sort of resource to begin with right away that they can watch to help them, just validate even more their decision to start with USANA. All right, so that is it. That's the presentation as a whole. So that is following up and closing. We will do, for those of you who joined us late, what we're doing right now is we're taking the 4 main distinctions, which is contacting, inviting, following up and closing, or following up and then closing, and then presenting. So those are like the 4 skills that you have to master in order to really take your business to the next level, and your leadership to the next level. What we're doing is we're taking those 4 main distinctions, we're chunking them down, and we're doing training and development videos, presentations, webinars based on those, so that you guys are not confused about what it takes to do all of them, do them well, do them simply, and be able to duplicate that.